Elvis Kosgei for that particular story. Governor, let's continue this conversation. And even before we talk about the funds, there's the issue of the ongoing feud or tiff between the COG and the Senate. And you said you wrote to the clerk that you've been summoned for 2 separate meetings and you will attend one. And of course, probably attend the other at a later date. So one would be you're open to attending these CPAC meetings. That is correct? So you're not part of the COG team that says, because the COG says governors will not appear.
Let me say this.
Okay.
The reason, if you have 2 bodies in Kenya that are conflicting, it's only fair that they get into a dispute resolution, because these are leaders of Kenya. And when governors raised serious questions about 4 members of the CPAC committee, they have evidence and they have everything, and we need to resolve that. We don't need to have conflicts in any committee.
Okay.
And I am part and parcel of the Council of Governors. Samburu County is part and parcel of the Council of Governors. So whatever resolutions are passed by the Council of Governors, I am part and parcel of those resolutions.
Okay.
I have written my letters politely asking the Senate to have a sitting with the Council of Governors so we can resolve this and serve the people of Kenya.
Now,
I'm still waiting for that, and every governor is waiting for that.
Okay.
We really want to resolve this so we can move. The Senate has the mandate of oversight. That one we agree. But when there are serious issues raised about the credibility of some members being extortionists, that is a serious issue. We all want to make the Senate a strong Senate for the country of Kenya. We all love our Senate to have integrity and dignity. And that is why, if there are 4 spoiled potatoes within the Senate, we must talk about it so that the reputation of the Senate remains the best for as a parliament of Kenya.
Of course, there's the concern about harassment and there's the concern about being extortion.
Yeah.
And you said, 4 senators. But the concern is, those senators were mentioned, but is there evidence that indeed they extorted a certain number of governors? Have you been extorted before? If so, by who? And do you have evidence in regards to the same? And again, the COG says they have evidence.
I'm waiting for that meeting. I'm waiting for the meeting of the Senate, because I respect the Senate and the Council of Governors. And I have evidence, and so many governors have evidence. And any time I want to speak to the Speaker of the Senate, that if you have something raised against some members, it is not like we have issues with the Senate at all. We want the Senate of Kenya to be strong and do oversight and do good work for the people of Kenya. But we cannot pretend that whatever the governors are raising is not there, because we have evidence. But we've kept this evidence until we have that meeting with the Senate. We don't want to take these things into other levels. We want to share with the leadership of the Senate that we have this, I have this governor has this. It is now for the leadership of the Senate to judge out of the evidence we have, if our evidence makes sense, and it will make a lot of sense.
Okay,
we have everything. I don't want to speak here, but I have evidence, and many governors have evidence. Allow us that meeting of the Senate, and we'll give you that evidence.
Fair enough. One would wonder, Governor, if the COG and the entire Council of Governors are open to accountability and they want this issue resolved as soon as possible. Right. It has been over a month since these allegations were made. Why wait this long to present the evidence that indeed these governors are senators are corrupt and they extort governors?
we did not, some of us don't want to, we respect the institution of the Senate the same way the Senate respects the institution of the Council of Governors. We wanted to do this thing internally and let the leadership of the Senate and let the leadership of the Council of Governors look at the evidence we have, first of all, internally. If we can resolve this thing internally, there is no need, because we also want to protect the reputation of our Senate and the reputation of our leadership. We said, and I'll say it again, we have enough evidence, and not just me alone. Several governors have enough evidence. And people know that we have that evidence. But that evidence is not for the press here. I want to present that evidence to the Senate leadership internally, because there are things we don't want to do. We don't want to completely, just because of 4 people, make the Senate look bad. Senate of Kenya is an honorable house. I was a member of Parliament, and I respect Parliament, and I know there's so many good people in the Senate. In fact, all are good people. We just need to present. And I told you again, this evidence will be there. And we want to leave the leadership to see. The only problem that's there now, somehow the Council of Governors and the Senate are not speaking together. Let us allow that speak together. We share what we have. You still have to judge for yourself whether the evidence we have makes sense or doesn't make sense.
Have you involved the other mandated agencies in regards to the extortion and issue of bribes? Because if there's no if that meeting does not happen, because senators and the chairperson of the CPAC committee, that is Senator Moses Kajwang, dismissed that particular meeting, and in fact he called it session to drink tea. So what other avenues are you?
Meeting will happen because there is no reason for us at this moment to take those discussions to other agencies.
The question
we
is
want to have a good, if you are the leader in some place and one of your clans or two of your clans or all of your clans bring some complaint to you, your job is to listen. Listening doesn't hurt. Just give us that audience. Then you listen to the Council of Governors. You can judge from there whether there is something you're supposed to do or not. But to pretend that there is nothing when everybody is complaining, to me, is not a good thing for the country of Kenya.
Governor, most people say you're using this, scuffle or feud as long as it will go, because you're saying you hope that meeting will happen. And if at all it doesn't happen, what next? Because there are concerns about you guys using this particular, period, as far as it will go, as a shield against being held accountable, being asked about these audit queries, because these are funds that public funds, and Kenyans want to know. They want answers to the same, because when you say the evidence is not.
Let me answer you.
Governor. When you say the evidence is not for the press, Kenyans look at us to provide information.
Yeah, as of now.
That information is not forthcoming. You're saying you have the evidence, but it has been over a month.
So many have.
We've not seen any evidence on your part.
Okay.
So for how long will Kenyans wait? For how long will you, will governors stop attending these meetings, which translates to them not being held accountable, which translates to them not explaining how these public funds have been used?
Okay. Two questions in one. I will leave the first question on when this discussion will die off to the leadership of the Council of Governors and to the leadership of the Senate. I'm not part of the leadership. So that one they can answer when we should move to another level. On the question of accountability, governors and the Council of Governors are only making a complaint on one single committee. Every other attendance in all other committees, there is nothing being questioned about. And that's why we are attending all other committees. And on the issue of accountability, it's not only one committee that does accountability. All committees of the Senate do oversight and accountability. And I tell you also, what we go to do in the Senate is simply go to through the reports of the Auditor General of Kenya.
Okay.
That the auditor reports alone, the report of the Auditor General alone is enough for accountability reason. We only go to the Senate to expound on that. In fact, the first call for the auditor's report is the county assemblies of the counties of Kenya. So even within the county framework, within the county assembly, all those things can be resolved. But we are ready and willing to go to the Senate committees, all other committees, anytime the Senate wants us to appear.
Okay.
We have issues with one committee, just one out of so many committees in the Senate. I think it's only reasonable enough that we get into a sitting as leaders of this country and agree so that the Council of Governors can be heard, and the Senate can make judgment after hearing issues raised by the Council of Governors on one committee, just one committee. Then all other committees do accountability. So accountability is going on.
Fair enough. Let me ask, because we've talked about the Auditor General, we've talked about other committees. Let's talk about this CPIC that you decided to attend the meeting. And Governor, you've talked about the Auditor General being able to do whatever they're mandated to do. But in regards to one particular query, there's 68 million which is in question. And the Auditor General, the auditors from the Auditor General's office do say they were denied access into financial records. And you appeared before the CPIC committee a couple of weeks ago, Governor. And there's 68 million is unaccounted for. There are no paper trails, there are no receipts in regards to how this money was used. And the reason you gave as to why there was no proper explanation, Governor, is that the senior officials from that particular entity, which is the water company, came to Nairobi and then they disappeared. They were not found anywhere. So my question would be, 2 weeks later, if they disappeared in Nairobi, what action have you taken?
Let me start this way. First of all, there was no discussion, and you can get into the Hansard of Parliament about the 68 million.
There was, Governor.
There was nothing. Get to the Hansard and prove me wrong.
There was.
This was a making of some press house that I'm not going to call after we got out of the Senate. Nothing was discussed. Get to the Hansard. But granted, in that Senate meeting, I said to the Senate, and that's what the Senate is supposed to do, after we presented everything, if there is anybody who is culpable, who is involved in anything about any monies about on the county government of Samburu, it's not for the governor to prosecute. Please take those documents to the right agencies, including ACC. Please get hold of those guys. Take them to where they're supposed to take. Prosecute them. So, you know, the job of prosecuting of people who misuse public funds does not rest with the governor. It rests with the agencies that are entrusted with that. And I said that, and it's answered. It's in the answer. I told the Senate committee, if there is anything in Samburu, not just that committee alone, department alone, not only that agency alone, if there is anything, and it's on record, I said, please take it to ACC, let us prosecute the people involved. And I am still in that position.
Back to my question, Governor. Yeah. Of course, that can happen, but the question is, they were part of your team, which they were supposed to be part of your team, which appeared before that particular committee. Yes. And the person whose image is out there, that this money has not, you know, this mismanagement of funds, the 68 million, for example.
I don't know why you get the 68 million.
Just a moment.
I don't know why you get, because it was not mentioned. And we can play the Hansard here with you. It's not there.
Governor, just a moment. What action have you done as the county chief? What action have you taken as the county chief in regards to these individuals?
In regard to these individuals failing to appear, I have asked the board of SAWASCO, which is the governing body of the water agency, to sit down and find ways to discipline those people in a legal way. If it means dismissing them, they will dismiss them. I'm waiting for the report of the board of SAWASCO, and if they were to take my position, I want them dismissed. But you know, SAWASCO is an agency of Samburu County government, and the person who does that is the board. And they have clear instructions from me. Sit down. These people told us they were in Nairobi. They were in Parkland, I don't know, what do you call it? Some part of Nairobi, I'd forgotten the name, printing those documents. Ngara. They said they were in Ngara.
Okay.
Up until we entered the Senate, they were still there. In that sitting of the Senate, I had the chairman of the board. I had one member of that water body. They were sitting there. That was a clear proof to me that these people were in Nairobi. But I have asked the Senate to forward anything to the rightful agencies of the ACC and the rest. Let them do that. Let people account. I will do my part. And I've already written to the board of governors, the board of directors of SAWASCO, to discipline the staff that were involved at the highest level.
When did you write this later?
A day before I left the Senate. I don't remember the date, but it's there.
A day before you left the Senate?
After I left the Senate.
It is 2 weeks later. Any response?
I have not received any response because I think they have not had a sitting. Wait for them. I think they will do something good. I'm sure they will discipline them.
But this is an issue that regards public funds, Governor. So
yeah, but you have to follow also the law. People have rights. You cannot just walk to somebody and say, I've had you. Let them do the right thing. But I'm sure they'll produce some good results. Wait for them.
So how long should you wait?
Once the board have a sitting, I think they'll do a sitting before the end of the month. Then they will make a resolution.
Before the end of April?
Yeah.
That will be almost a month and a half, Governor.
But fair enough. These people, Kenya is a country governed by laws.
Okay.
All people have rights, including you.
Okay.
Even this TV station cannot fire you arbitrarily. They have to go through the process. The board already has instructions to sit and find why these people disappeared in Nairobi. And I'm not going to leave that. I'll make sure that happens. Something happens. And I'm waiting from the board. The governor does not sit in that board.
Okay, fair enough. Let's come back to CPAC, Governor. You said you were willing to attend the meeting, that summons were issued or a warrant of arrest was issued against you for not attending. But that is not the first meeting that you failed to attend. There are other meetings that you failed to attend. And in fact, at some point, you were also fined in regards to the same.
Just tell me how many meetings, out of how many meetings I have not attended. I've been attending meetings of the Senate. Since I became governor, I missed one meeting, and I'm glad you asked this question, one meeting of the Senate, CPAC. And I did not miss it without a reason. The law allows us governors and every person that you can write and reschedule a meeting. Governors are not idle people just waiting to be called to go to the Senate. It is reasonable that when you're called, you at one, sometimes, and I've only done that one, sometimes you can ask for a rescheduling. Every other governor has asked for a rescheduling, but I only asked that one rescheduling, and somehow it was denied. But I had nothing to do because I'd already planned activities in Samburu, and I must do them. So, while missing that single one, and this is the bigger one.
You had activities in Samburu?
Yes, yes.
What about the one that you said you had a UDA meeting at State House?
I tell you, I have activities in Samburu. Allow me to, I'm the one who's speaking. So I had activities in Samburu. And even if it was an UDA meeting, I'm a member of the UDA. No, and if UDA were to call me once a year, okay, I can ask the committee to allow me to attend my party's meeting at the State House because that's the party I belong. I'm saying, why would the Senate not allow me just one rescheduling so I can come in the next meeting? And this is even important. When I missed that single one, and so many people miss meetings. You've seen 29 governors missing. I'm the only governor who missed one meeting and was immediately fined 500,000, which I deposited with the Senate. I should not have. Because the laws of natural justice would allow somebody to be heard. The Senate would have allowed me to be heard before giving me the highest punishment allowed by law. But because I'm a good person, I said there's no need to argue with the Senate. I'll pay the money and maybe attend meetings later. They should have given me a hearing like they do to everybody else. Missing one meeting should not have been the source to give somebody then, the final punishment, and I paid the money, which I shouldn't, because I deserve a hearing on why I missed that sitting. And by the way, UDA, I'm part of UDA, so I can ask for permission to attend a UDA meeting at State House.
Now, Governor, I asked that question because I'd gone through the issue of, you not honoring these summons. And
one summon.
You're fined 500,000 on 4th of December.
Yes.
That was a summon that you did not.
And I paid.
You paid.
Yes.
And again,
but you should also produce a letter that I wrote to them that I can't make it because I had other engagements, and that's allowed by law.
Okay, fair enough. Also talking about letters, Governor, you said you received 2 letters from CPIC and CPAC.
Yes. To appear at the same time, at the same day, different rooms, number 9 and number 10. I'll give you those letters today.
Yeah, I'd also love to see them.
And I don't really have to tell you that as a human being, nobody can do 2 meetings at the same time at the same day.
But finally, Governor, I mean, at the end of the day, this is an issue that regards public funds.
Yeah.
How do you see this issue being resolved? How should we go about it? Because as far as this feud goes between governors and senators, at the end of the day, Kenyans need to hear on your end in regards to being accountable to the funds that have been given.
I want to correct you on one thing.
So what would be the end?
I need to correct you on one thing. The appearance of a governor does not necessarily mean that that's how you make submissions or account for funds. We do written submissions, and under the laws of Kenya, written submissions are allowed. Everybody can read the Auditor General's report and read the responses. There's really nothing we do when we appear. We simply go the same written responses.
So if there are irregularities, you're there to explain why. If there are discrepancies, you're there to explain. And
the law allows you, comes into play. The law allows you to explain in writing. And we do that. We do written submission. The law allows that.
But the Senate, for example, and Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna raised that particular concern, saying that you do written submissions, but when you appear before the Senate and you're asked to go through the same submissions that you wrote, sometimes lame excuses are given in regards to the same, and that goes a long way in trying to
take a step back. The Auditor General has already finished his report and he's produced a final report. You all read English. You can read everything in the report. What the Senate and the county assemblies require is simple explanations on whether there is something you are doing based on the queries of the auditor report. It is a smaller part of the entire auditing and accountability. The bigger part of auditing and accountability, 90%, is done by Auditor General's office, and it does for every county. What we come to explain in the county assembly and in the Senate, in my opinion, is about 10 to 5%. And even that 10 to 5%, the law allows for us for any person, not just to do written submission. If I were to come here and say something to you, I can still do the same by way of writing. I'm not saying in any way that you should not appear. I'm ready to appear anytime, anywhere, but I'm just, because you've asked the question, I'm telling you, written submissions are as good as appearance submission. They're the same.
They're the same, Governor, like you say. But the question is...
They're the same because the person who writes is the governor, who sends, the person who submits...
But most of the time, Governor, for example, the discrepancies in how these funds were used, there are concerns from the Auditor General in regards to how public money was spent, and that is why you appear before these committees to explain how these funds were used. But if you don't appear, how then?
Let me correct you again. The appearance is not usually about funds. Some counties don't have loss of funds, and it is clear in the auditor's report. There is no loss of funds. So some appearances are compliance related.
And it is fine.
No, I just want you to move away from this fund.
I'm talking about accountability, and I'm talking about the ones that pertain the issue of usage of funds, public funds. Yeah. Yes.
That is why we appear in all other committees.
And that is what I'm talking about, Governor.
Yeah. We appear in all other committees.
So now, if you don't appear like you're saying, because the CG says we will not appear, what next?
The Council of Governors has made a resolution that they have issues with 4 members of one committee out of so many committees. And nobody has said we shouldn't appear. We said we need a sitting to resolve 1 or 2 things so that we can appear. You said how hard is that for human beings? I think the reason why we are different from other animals is we can reason together.
Governor, my final question would be, and you're not answering this question, Governor. The COG has said, and even you today said, you will not appear before this committee until your security is addressed, because you feel like, there's a threat to your life as well. So if you don't appear, and the COG maintains governors will not appear before this particular committee.
CPAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
What next?
The final decision will be made by the Council of Governors, leadership, and the leadership of the Senate. Because I'm not part of the leadership, I'll wait for that.
Are they mandated to make that final decision?
On the issues of today, assume you are the governor of Samburu. You've come to the Senate willingly. You've submitted everything. You're walking out of the Senate.
Okay.
Members of the press, allow me to finish.
Okay.
Hold you to a press conference. Then 6 senators, come to you to try and manhandle you. And I will tell you, hii Sifuna, nyinyi mnafikiri muoga sana. When Sifuna hit me, I was going to hit him. Unajua mimi am a man. But when I tried to hit him, akaweka mkono hivi. You know where I come from? Where I come in Samburu.
Governor.
Mtu akiweka mkono hivi, huwezi piga. Hiyo mtu muoga. Hata sijui kuenda nakaa kusumbua serikali.
Governor,
I want to tell people that hiyo mtu muoga sana.
Okay, Governor.
Karibu alie leo amenipiga, mimi kurudia kutaka kupiga nimesukuma hivi. Akaanza kuinua mkono hivi. Kama hajainua mkono ningekuwa nimelima yeye mbaya sana. Because alinipiga mbele. So I was in self defense.
Should that be the conduct of honorable members? But again, Governor,
you asked today, I think you should ask the right people. If I was there in the press conference and nobody came to me, I would have walked home and you would not have had all this problem.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
No. What was the reason for 6 senators to come and assault 1 governor? What was the reason? And I wish they were brave enough. Because when this guy, Sifuna, hit me, and I turned back, wanted to hit him, he begged me with his own hands. And I only left him because where I come from. And you can tell him,
Governor,
you can tell him that. I left him because where I come from in Samburu, it is very bad. It is a sin to hit a man when the hands are...
Fair enough. Yeah. We're winding up. Just one final question, Governor, because the time is running out. I've asked...
Lakini kwa unataka kusikia story kuwa mimi, these people came to me and they hit me.
We'll
and when I wanted to
Governor,
hit Sifuna back, he begged me. And it's on TV, you can check it.
We'll talk about that, Governor.
And I want to tell people,
be here to respond to that.
Sifuna is only a mdomo.
Fair enough.
He's a coward.
Governor, no. Finally, just one final question, Governor, because we need to end this particular
conversation. You should call him here with me.
Just Governor, kindly, one final question. Yeah. You said the COG will have the last word in regards to this particular feud.
Yes.
As who? Are they mandated to give the final word?
Every institution has leadership. I'm sure you work in this institution of the Standard Group, and there are people who make decisions for the rest of you. Being a governor who is a signatory to the Council of Governors, a body that is mandated I am held by the resolutions of the Council of Governors, and I trust their judgment. I know at some point they will give a direction, and whichever direction they will give, I'm 100% sure is for the good of Kenya, is for the good of our people, is the good of devolution, it's for the good of accountability, and you can trust. Those are 47 elected people. They're not fools.
When you say it's a decision that is good for Kenya's governor, as we speak, is the decision to skip these meetings for the good of Kenyans?
So is the decision
there's no accountability
to extort county money that is meant for boreholes, that is meant for drugs for our people, that is meant to help our people in educate our kids in nursery schools. Is the extortion by the 4 members, is that accountability?
When will this evidence... My last question, because...
I say that evidence will be provided. I say it again. We've asked the Senate that we do internally, because we are leaders, a dispute resolution, and we'll provide to them...
When will you provide this evidence? When?
In that meeting, when that meeting is called.
If it doesn't happen?
If it doesn't happen, then I told you before, the leadership of the Council of Governors will give us direction.
Well, that will be a biased direction, one would assume, Governor, because...
Why is it biased?
Because it is something that concerns them.
We are held as leaders of the Senate and the county government to be responsible leaders. If there are issues, serious issues of corruption raised among somebody in your team, it is only fair that we give a listen. I don't think that's asking too much.
You said you'll press charges against some senators. When are you pressing them? Tomorrow?
I reported to the police today.
Where?
I have an OB. It is on camera.
Which police station?
Central Police Station. I think the OB is right here, I can show you. But I reported because I was assaulted, and you have it on camera. And I told you, thank God, Sifuna alifanya hivi mkono. And where I come from, ni dhambi. To beat somebody who has done this is Sai would not be talking this much. I would have beaten Sifuna.
Fair enough. Governor, thank you very much for making time. Of course, would probably need much time to discuss all this and dissect.
I also dared him to do that outside Parliament.
So on one hand, you're...
Just do it once.
Governor, on one hand, you're saying you're manhandled and you're pressing charges. On the other hand, you're threatening.
No, I'm threatening if they do it again.
Okay, fair enough.
This is self-defense, and I dare them to do it.
Fair enough, Governor. Thank you very much for making time. We'll find time to have this conversation once again. But of course, that time with
self-defense.
Which is fair, Governor.
Today, thank God, Sifuna begged me. I think you got an ongoing story.
Fair enough.
He hit me, but he's a coward. And I don't know why people in government fear Sifuna. I saw a very coward person today.
Fair enough. He's not here to defend himself in regards
to... No, bring him. I will tell him.
We'll bring him.
No, bring him.
That brings us to the end of this particular conversation, Governor. But we'll also invite you again, because we need to talk about the funds. We'll bring you again here, Governor, when we have much time to talk about the issue of funds.
When I looked at him, I would have beaten
him. Fair enough. Let's just take a breather now. We'll be back with another conversation in regards to matters of child safety here in the country. And of course, the steps that we are taking as a country, because we've seen a rise in the number of cases against, children being abducted, others, young girls being raped and, killed. Their bodies being recovered in pit latrines and, in bushes. So how can we address this particular issue? Because it is really, really concerning. So that will be a conversation that we'll be having with a representative from the Directorate of the Criminal Investigation here under the Child Protection Unit, as well as a lawyer who will help us understand what, should be done, what actions should be taken by the government and the mandated agencies to ensure that we are done, or we deal with this menace once and for all. That will be a conversation that will come your way in not so long. Do stay with us.
Lock in moisture while skin